Hi, I'm Ryan Liu. I'm one of the first year ISAs and I'm a current fifth year. And in this video, we're kind of just going to talk about the introductory cutting tools. And um, yeah, first off is the cutting mat itself. And pretty much we use this for all our cuts. So we have it on our desk pretty much all the time. And it kind of has this self-healing material that when you cut it, it doesn't leave a mark and it'll just heal by the next time. So we suggest you use it all the time and don't be afraid to use it. It has the grid lines so that you can use it as a measurement as well. So it's marked at every half inch. And if you want to glue on it, we suggest putting a piece of material on top of it or something so that you don't put glue directly onto the mat because that'll mess it up and it'll make it harder to use next time. First off, we have the metal ruler, and this one has cork on the bottom, but some don't. And we also have the T-square that's metal. This one lines up next to the cutting mat, so along the edge, it has this edge to line up to, and that's used for making perfect 90-degree angles. And this regular ruler we just use for straight cuts in general, and the cork makes it a little easier to run the blade along, but I'll show you an example in a second. With the metal ruler, we also have the box cutter, or this we call the Alpha. That's just the brand. And it's best for the long straight cuts and with slightly thicker material. And we pretty much never use it with like wood or thick materials that would take a lot of passes to cut through. We never use this without a straight edge just because it's mainly used for long and straight cuts. So the ruler is really nice for making that straight cut, and it goes a lot faster. And you don't cut towards yourself, but more of at an angle or like across your body, just so the blade's not pointing straight back at you in case it slips or anything. You can see that on each replacement blade, there's these lines, and those are actually blades themselves. So there's 6 blades to 1 stick of blades. And once the tip is getting a bit dull and you can just tell by it takes more cuts, you can replace it by putting that edge up to a little past the top of the metal casing, flipping it over, placing your thumb over that blade so when it snaps off, it doesn't fly off, and you press down on the surface of your cutting mat at an angle, and you just press right there until you hear that snap, and then the old blade is now here, and you dispose of it like in a plastic container that the studios normally provide for blades, and then you just push out the next blade and you can use it as new. You can also replace this whole strip of blades by loosening the screw all the way, pulling it out the back, and this whole strip just comes off, and then you replace it with a new one by just placing it back on that knob, putting it back in the bottom, and screwing it back down. And to make the cut in the cardboard, we'll show you an example. You normally want to measure it out, but since I'm just cutting, I'm not going to use any measurements, and I'm just going to freehand cut with this. But I'm going to use the metal ruler as the guide, and you place the metal ruler and hold it with your non-dominant hand, and you place the blade alongside it, and you're holding the blade with your dominant hand, and you slowly just pass along that blade, being sure to watch your fingers on your non-dominant hand, and you just make a few passes and just let the blade do all the work. You don't need to press that hard, you just need to do multiple passes. And this prevents slipping, and it just makes a straighter cut, and you'll see that eventually it just falls apart, and then you have 2 perfectly straight pieces. The cardboard itself also has corrugation, as you see, so you can cut along the corrugation like I did, or you can cut against it, and you can see against it, that's the corrugation. Oh, I actually cut against the corrugation, sorry. So in this direction, it kind of makes this zigzag shape, But if you cut along this direction, you can see it's just straight cuts. So this one's easier to cut along, but there's more of like a gap that kind of folds, where in this direction, it doesn't really fold that much. Next is the X-Acto blade, which is this one, or called an XL blade. But this is more for smaller cuts and curvilinear cuts. It's good for really exact things and getting into tight places. It's normally used with thin material, so in this case, I'm just going to be using Bristol, basically this like thicker paper. And to cut with it, you do the same thing. You place the metal blade, the metal ruler down, and you place the X-Acto blade up to the edge, and you just follow along, making sure not to press too hard. And you can see even when you don't cut through the material all the way, you can use it as a scoring line, used for folding. But to make the actual cut, you just keep making more passes. So again, with the metal ruler, you place the blade along and make some passes. And then you have two perfectly straight cuts. And to replace these blades, it's pretty simple. You just unscrew the top, and then you can take this out, and then you can replace it with a new one. When you're done using it, you can also just flip the blade into here, which I do a lot, and then just close it like that, just so the blade's not pointing out if you don't have a cap for your blades. We also have scissors, which pretty much everyone has used before, I assume, and we don't really use them that much for models at all. It makes very inexact cuts, and it's just not good for model making. It squishes the material, and it's hard to use. But they're very fast, and you don't really need a cutting mat. This is the miter box. This is the box part, and this is the saw. And it has these 90-degree cuts, 45-degree cuts, and 30-degree cuts, and it's used for making those exact angles on normally like pieces of wood, like basswood, and just materials that would fit inside of this width. As you can see on the bottom in profile, it also has like this little edge, and that's for placing it up against the cutting mat or the edge of the table. And you just butt it up against the edge of the table, and you place the material in to make the cut. And depending on the blade, the cut normally happens in the pull direction, and you just want to hold the material in this little gap along the wall, being sure to watch your finger from being cut, and you just go slowly, and you just make a couple passes. Normally it only needs like one, and you can see that it makes perfect 90-degree cuts, or if you want 30-degree or again 45-degree, you can also do that.